Hi everybody and welcome to episode 8 of Taking Care of Business. Today we're going to talk about the sweeping changes across the legal system in Dubai. So we're here with Carl Alsop.
Hi everyone.
And what's your name?
Every week.
Every time.
What do you do?
And do you work at Alsop and Alsop?
Would you like a cup of tea, sir?
It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been a while.
Where have we been?
I don't even know myself. Where am I? What year is it? So today's episode is sponsored by 7 Fortunes Coffee. Visit 7fortunes.com.
This is an ad
for the best Americano unpaid ad. I had to pay for his coffee as well. So today there's been sweeping changes across the legal system, changes that I think a lot of people have questioned about coming to Dubai, especially if you go on somewhere like the Daily Mail or the Sun. You read the newspapers like that, the first thing they'll talk about is the reasons why people can't come to Dubai, whether it's holding hands or drinking alcohol. Or
absolutely groundbreaking. A huge shift in people's perception of the direction of the future of the country and the whole region, really. So I guess just jumping straight into it, do you want to just talk through some of the things that were discussed yesterday?
Yeah, so, well, like you say, quite sweeping, quite a number of changes. First one around inheritance law. So I think a lot of people in the past may have been wary about like settling down, getting married, bringing up kids in Dubai, because they're not sure if the worst was to happen, what would happen to them. So now, with regards to inheritance, whatever the rules are in the country of your origin, the country you come from, that's how your inheritance, if the unfortunate does happen, your inheritance will be decided by the laws.
So
of the
currently right now it
from.
reverts to Sharia unless you have a will.
So I've actually got a client whose father passed away about 10 years ago or so, and how Sharia works, and again this is the limited information that I have because I've not been through the process myself, but the head of the family actually takes control of all of the assets, and their duty is to look after the people within the family. So obviously it becomes quite complicated. I know it's a certain way of law, but obviously if you go back to, let's say you revert to UK law, you have a will written out and that will tell you my assets go to this person, it's broken down in this terminology and how it's going to work. So I think it gives a very clear guideline for anyone that's not a UAE citizen. Effectively, you can feel a lot more comfortable with your assets.
Yeah, I think regardless, obviously this is fantastic. Having a bit of clarity about any potential eventualities. It's not nice talking about it, but I think people moving here and actually establishing a long life in the country, there's now no grey areas. You can now revert back
your hair.
Yes, except for my hair. Now no grey areas. What I would always encourage to have a will, regardless.
Have you got a will?
I've got a will.
Well,
yes.
No, but I've been looking into this, so
that doesn't help when you die. Yeah, so Paul, he's been looking into it. Can we use that, please?
But one thing we should highlight, and especially for us guys, is it doesn't include property. So if you own a property in Dubai, you still need a will. But I think that's fair enough, to be honest, because it's a fixed asset within Dubai. So while Dubai is being open and inclusive to everyone from wherever they come from around the world, any country or city in the world still has to have a certain amount of laws that are their own. And that do govern
like you said,
happen.
if you're buying a property in Dubai, there's got to be Dubai law. I mean, my will myself is a DIFC will, so that is registered in the DIFC, and I think it's UK law that it sticks up to. So that gets you out of the whole conception of Sharia law, effectively, because I think if I'd passed away, Carl he'd be the king of the household, so he'd take all my debt on.
I think it's
all my negative equity would go in Carl's name. He'd love that.
I think it's all about. It's all about your wish. I know it's a grim start talking about this.
Yeah.
But why is this going to be such a positive thing for the future of the country? Because we've got a few big years ahead of it with obviously Expo next year, touch wood, and that'll be happening.
It's plastic. Plastic table.
Sorry, Expo.
Why is this such a huge thing? Because there were a number of announcements yesterday, and quite substantial announcements. Why is this going to be a big thing?
Well, another one was the cohabitation one, which allows people who aren't married, or if you not even so much if you're a couple, but if you're just different sexes living in the same property. Previously that wasn't allowed. Now they've said it is allowed. But coming back to inheritance as well, and something we've all said for a long time, and I think most people in Dubai have said, is Dubai to go on to the next level. In general at the moment, Dubai is talking about the next 50 years and the plan for the next 50 years. to be sustainable for the next 50 years, it needs to be a place where people settle down, they have children, they see a long-term future, and not the traditional, we'll go to Dubai for a couple of years, save a house deposit and move home. So all these kind of laws and reforms that are being put in is going to make people feel more comfortable in Dubai, more likely to settle down.
Keeping people in country longer.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we go on to the next one because we're trying to cap this to a certain amount of time that we can keep it to. We've got the cohabitation, which talks about cohabitation, people that are living here, people that are not married, maybe friends, maybe they're in a new partnership. They are legally allowed to, from last week, when this law was announced, to live in the same household.
Yep. I put a disclaimer in terms I'm not a lawyer or telling everyone the laws of Dubai, but from what's being reported and what we're reading online, then yes.
Okay. So they can quote Paul Kelly.
Yeah.
Paul Kelly is actually a qualified lawyer, by the way, so you can quote him on that.
But what's really interesting about it is there's always been that little grey area. I know it sounds crazy, but if the police knock on your door for any reason and you go, oh my God, there's that fear of who's living in the house. And I think that they're trying to dispel these rumours. And that goes on to the next one, which is another grey area that's been for years, and it's the alcohol consumption in Dubai. So that law's recently changed as well. So before you would need an alcohol licence, you'd have to drink in an alcohol zone, you need to apply for the licence. And I think that where there's been a major grey area is that they were trying to get and were asking tourists effectively that come into Dubai to apply for a temporary drinking alcoholic visa. So that's now removed, where you do not need any type of
disclaimer: we don't condone alcohol, nor do we
from Monday to Thursday.
Yeah, and drink responsibly.
But it's an incredible step forward again, because they've realised that Dubai as a whole is attracting different types of people that want to come here and experience the hotel experience and maybe have a cocktail on the beach. And I think before maybe there's that fear, and it's not just people coming to Dubai, maybe what they read on the internet. And I think that this new rule coming in has dispelled any type of tourism
changed
fear.
Perception. Definitely. Hugely.
Well, do you know what? Sorry to interrupt. It does, because we all know from living here for so long that although there were all these grey areas, I don't know anyone that was ever prosecuted for drinking alcohol or coexisting or anything else. It's not like the country was really strict on upholding it in the past, but I think you spot on that, just changes the perception. So some of the newspaper headlines you see around the world, they won't have a basis anymore, because now anyone can turn around and say, well, no, actually, as a point of law,
it is
that's
what you
not
read,
true.
isn't it? You get friends and family who go, oh, you're going to Dubai, don't have a drink, don't hold hands with anyone.
And people that, our HR team, recruitment team have initial conversations with about moving to the country, and with Allsop and Allsop, one of the very first questions is about what you can and what you can't do.
Can I drink?
With every person. And believe it or not, this obviously, we need to respect the culture and people who obviously are residents here. But the reality is that it's so relaxed is the wrong word, but very understanding of other people and where they're from and what they want to do. And I think these new laws now just ratifies that, just makes it more more very clear.
I think that brings us on to a point that we were discussing just off air before about Sheikh Mohammed's speech to the UN, where he talks about like openness and diversity and tolerance of all different cultures. So it follows that.
Do you think all this, maybe it was in the master plan of the UAE, because they've got the master plan for the next 50 years, but do you think this was in a reaction to COVID? Because I heard this morning, believe it or not, I don't know how true it is, that 1 million people have left the UAE since COVID.
Really?
Yeah. Million, which is obviously huge numbers, but again,
disclaimer, that might not be true, by the way.
No,
in case anyone was talking.
I'm quoting the Business Breakfast this morning, so I don't know how accurate that is, but
that's 20% of the 10% of the population.
Yeah. So maybe it's in reactions. I don't know, but I think the reality is the future is huge for the UAE.
I think one important thing to talk about is that 1 million people may have left, and let's say that's a real top line number, but how many people around the world that have left their country where things are not great there, whether they're in lockdown and want the better life? I mean, we personally are at the highest level of recruitment we've ever had, and the CVs that we're receiving and people that are leaving industries to come into this industry. Since
June, I think we've hired the best part of 100 people.
Yeah.
So that's just us, one business. People are escaping their home countries where Howard probably dealt with COVID. It's probably not as great as the UAE. I think many countries is nowhere near as good as how I feel the UAE have handled it. And escapism are looking for somewhere with a bit of hope. And I think what the UAE does offer and Dubai does offer, it offers hope.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that is a direct response to COVID, which I'm also a big fan of, and I hope to explain this well. it was announced a couple of weeks ago that if someone's working from home in the UK, for example, so they never go to an office in the UK, they can now get residency to move to Dubai, live in Dubai, but keep their UK job. So they can get the residency based on the UK job. So instead of working from home in the UK, they can work from home whilst they're sat in Dubai and then experience the weather, the lifestyle and everything else that Dubai has to offer.
That's what your next job would be. Paul, you're now working on your sun lounger, but with no pay. Congratulations. So 2 more laws that have come in, I think we need to talk about very quickly. First of all, translators will now be provided for defendants in court if they do not speak Arabic. I know firsthand, when I first moved to Dubai, experiencing going to court to defend yourself in business and not having an Arabic speaker there was no set term of how you would do it. You'd have to employ someone and you would have to go through the whole process, and that's a cost. And I think now they've realised that if the courts are going to be Arabic speaking, they have to supply an Arabic translator. So that on its own has set a very good standard for the court system.
Do you mean when you were setting up the business, studying all the ins and outs of processes, not having to go to court to defend yourself? Or
no, so when we set the business up at the start, obviously you do have court cases, and I remember me and Carl turning up to the court and not being able to speak English to deal with in any situation you've got. So in that situation today, me and Carl would have stood there, and 10 years ago you go, well, I don't speak Arabic, and they just go, okay, next case. Now they have someone there to translate what's going on.
It's all about I know we're not in a democracy, but it's about fairness.
Yeah,
it's about openness. I think a really welcome change.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially if you're on that side and you experience it, and if you don't experience it, you don't understand it, because you do read horror stories of people that have gone in there and they don't know what's going on, and you go to the UK and they say, give me my phone call. These new laws are now coming into place that are really helping business and people. And the final thing I'm going to go on to is something I've read about before, and this has been a grey area that we've not really touched on, but Good Samaritan services effectively. So I don't know if you've read stories before about, there was a story before about a young girl that was drowning in the sea, and the person actually helped her, and I think ended up getting in trouble for helping them, because obviously there's laws in place for, effectively not helping people. So there's a new law coming out that says if you're doing a good intention job and you go and help someone, there is no criminal law against you for any untoward doing. So that for me is, it just gives that peace of mind that if you're going to go out and help someone in your community, there's no backlash effectively.
Peace of mind and helping people in your community, but also just developing a community where people are looking out for each other and are trying to help each other without having something in the back of their mind thinking, oh, should I, shouldn't I? So again, really, really good. I think everything that was announced yesterday is just so welcome, and I think it'll help the place massively. I think it helped people feel more comfortable here. Not that people don't feel comfortable, but if they have niggling doubts in their mind,
the doubts that are there.
And I'm pretty sure with what we've seen this year already, I'm very sure that it's probably just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure there's more things to come, but from a business owners, for us, very, very welcome. It will only have positive impacts, and people feeling that this place is a place to be for the rest of their lives.
It's a home.
Yeah,
it's home.
So to wrap it up, there's been some massive changes across Dubai, changes around alcohol, about the consumption of alcohol, about cohabitation, everything to do with modernising the city into one of the most culturally diverse cities effectively around the world. And I think there's going to be a lot more change coming, positive change for Dubai. We hope this news and update come in handy, and we hope to see you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Bye. Go and get ET now.
Please.
Thanks, guys.